So the title of this live is The Broke Holy Healer is the Virgin and the Business Person is the Whore. And obviously that's not what I personally actually believe or what I'm actually teaching. It's that this has been a huge problem in culture, in society, and so on, especially with women who are healers of any stripe, whether we are psychotherapists or coaches or, massage therapists or whatever, even though they're all different, there's a similar cultural paradigm and framework at play. Hello, whoever is here. So the other night I was in a conversation with a male friend, and he's actually a healer of his own stripe, and I'm not going to say what he does because I want it to be anonymous, but he was talking about the lack of money in his business, and he was ruminating and saying something like, well, we are healers, we're not business people. Hey, Andy. So he was saying, we're healers, we're not business people. And that pissed me off when he said it. And I didn't say, hey, that's bullshit, because I was just so shocked that he said it. And quite honestly, I've been going through my own shit too. But he said that. Hi from UK, welcome from the UK. So he said, we're healers, we're not business people. And I was pissed, and I was pissed because he said it, but I was pissed because he felt that way. I was pissed for myself and all the times I'd sold myself short in my own healing work, and absolutely pissed because of my own stuff. But I was also pissed that he saw that. I was pissed that he considered his healing business and his ability to run a business as separate topics, because it's like so much more of a cultural split. It's so much more of a bigger issue. If you're a healer, whether you're a coach or a therapist or anything else, and you're like, well, I'm a healer, I'm not a business person, you're actually hurting yourself. You're like cutting yourself off at the knees. You're cutting yourself off from money. You're cutting yourself off from life force. And when you're cutting yourself off in that way, you're actually projecting your own unconscious shit onto your clients and hurting them unconsciously too. So I was having this conversation with my friend last night, who's really a sweet guy, and he was like, well, my money thing has been hard, whatever. And he's like, I'm a healer and not a business person. And I was so pissed to see him selling himself short in that way, and I was so pissed to see him in that split, right? And I was pissed for myself too. And this is total bullshit. Well, one, because, you deserve to thrive, you deserve to make as much money as you want to make, but it's also bullshit because it's a larger cultural split of the martyr. I'm going to be the selfless martyr and rescue everybody and not get paid. Jesus on the cross or whatever, I'm going to give myself to humanity and I need nothing. And that's bullshit. That might have worked, in ancient times in India where they fed the sadhus, but it doesn't work in our current society. So it's the bullshit of the martyr who's rescuing people for like nothing in return. And, versus like the stereotype of the sleazy salesman or the evil business person or whatever, So it's that old cultural split of I'm going to be the martyr, I'm going to be the good girl, I'm going to nail myself to the cross, I'm going to give it away for free, versus quote unquote the sleazy salesperson or I have more examples later, that sort of thing. And it's actually the split. It's a lie to say that money doesn't matter. We live, and you guys know this, we're in this like global pandemic. Some of us are feeling challenges, some of us aren't. It is what it is. I'm really not here to get too deeply into that. But the truth is, more and more, money does matter. And being, I don't even want to say well compensated, I want to say like revered for your livelihood absolutely does fucking matter. And we'll talk about some ways to heal this split. But, it's that split between the selfless martyr, selfless sacrifice, just give it all away, which worked in another culture and in another time, but does not work now. And, please drop in your comments or questions. I'm seeing lots of you here. Questions are welcome. And the lie that we've been taught, not all of us for sure, but those of us who are, psychotherapists, massage therapists, coaches, not so much coaches. They're the lie that we've been taught that money doesn't matter. And I'm going to speak to who this is for because I got way ahead of myself on this live. You are like really talented at what you do. And you have done a lot of training and education. So you might be a psychotherapist. You might be like a coach with multiple certifications. You might be like a massage therapist who's gone to like 8 trainings, not like 200 hours, but thousands and thousands of hours. You are incredibly talented at what you do. And you probably have been putting yourself out there for years and making your income, your livelihood from serving others, whether that's in your primary stream as like a coach or a therapist or what you're doing, or in another job, like a nurse or an educator, where you're also helping others. The point is you've dedicated your life to helping others, and that's what you're doing here, but you're still in this split. And, raise your hand or send me a PM or something if this makes sense to you, if you resonate. So the split, to go back to the main point here, the split is the broke holy healer as the virgin and the business person as the whore. It's a split that comes from patriarchy, that comes from religion, that comes from things that go way back, and we'll get there. But then in modern times, in like recent times, hey John, if you like went to massage school or something, the more importance you place on money, the more the universe would show you wrong. Andy, if you want to, share more about that, you're welcome to. I'm not saying it's the only thing. I'm saying that there's a balance here. I'm saying that it's a realistic thing. So, money's certainly not the only thing. It's that we can't be split from it and like disowning it and expect to thrive. I'm saying don't be split from the topic, not that it's the only thing. But if you want to say more, Andy, please go ahead and say more. Hey, Kenneth, it's lots of men here. That's great. Hey, love. So, yeah, nothing wrong with money. Absolutely. It's just, that's the whole point of this, is that there's nothing wrong with money, and we all need to claim how we truly feel about it, whatever those feelings are. So really, right now, before I go deeper, take 30 seconds and ask yourself, how do I really feel about money? And you guys ask this to yourself, right? And just ask yourself, how do you feel about this topic? And I don't care if your answer is, I hate it, it's evil, or I'm in love with it and I'm a billionaire. There's nothing wrong with any answer, but open up to the topic. So the split here is that, it's actually a sexual split. It's, we think it's about money, and lots of people talk about the subconscious and trauma, and I talk about those things, but that's not where we're going today, okay? Today we're not going to that. If you look at the origins of religion, if you look at the origins of Judaism and Christianity, if you look at the Garden of Eden, right, that stuff, that is patriarchy. And we were taught, Eve, sexuality is a sin, sexuality is bad, Eve was wrong, Eve was a sinner, sin, shame, desire is naughty, desire is taboo. I mean, can you guys imagine going to church and like standing up and talking about sex? In most cases, you'd be like, whoa, you'd be like cast out, right? And I was raised Jewish, but which is different, but similar patriarchal roots. So religion, Judeo-Christian religion gave us the split about sex. And yes, I know we started with money and now we're talking about sex, and bear with, because there is a connection. There's nothing like the Zen sense of calm which comes from having money. Absolutely. Absolutely, Kenneth. Absolutely. Yes. So this didn't start with money. Yes, there's trauma and other things, but one huge root of this is about religion, sexuality, and shame, and how essentially much of the world was in a polytheistic religion, a polytheistic culture where there was masculine and feminine, where basically sexuality was more of a free-for-all than it is now. Now, I don't know what was going on. I wasn't there, but it was much more open. And then Judaism came along, and then Christianity, and we had God the Father, we had the Punisher, we had the Garden of Eden, we had, sexuality is like sin and shame and all of that. And what happened is we got split off from our desires. So the link here is that patriarchy and patriarchal religion, one, taught us to split off from being honest about our desires. And in some ways, as I'm in America, like, we're very honest. We're like, I want a new TV, but I don't mean that stuff. I don't mean like the superficial shit, our deeper desires. our raw, primal, embodied, sensuous desires. The culture of patriarchy and religion cut us off from our desires, which cut us off from our desires about money, which also, the Judeo-Christian patriarchal thing, also gave us the split of the virgin and the whore. And just think about that, right? So now we have, the virgin mother of Jesus. Okay, come on. I believe that Jesus was real, and I'm all for love and light. Nothing wrong with any of that. But virgin birth, I don't think so. We have the virgin mother, and then we have, hey, Sarah Jane, and then we have the whore. We have Mary Magdalene, who was incredibly sexual as the whore. We have, I really wasn't raised Christian, but there was the virgin and the whore, and that dichotomized split, which was even there before our Christianity, which was there sort of in the Garden of Eden with Eve and Lilith, and that's just a whole thing. So how did this trickle down, right? How does this apply to you? How does this apply to the broke holy healer versus the business person? Well, a lot of the trainings for healing and stuff teach this, I was a yoga teacher first. There's this inbound, internal sense of asceticism. You think yogis are usually trained to be vegetarians or usually trained to be renunciates and so on. And, even as psychotherapists, and then I was a psychotherapist. So I was a yoga teacher first. And there was this, you can't charge a lot for your teaching, and you're supposed to be a vegetarian and get up at 5 a.m. and do 4,000 sun salutes. And as much as I love yoga poses, all of those teachings are utter bullshit and completely useless to my personal life. And then I was a psychotherapist after that, and the teachings with that were it wasn't about getting up at 5 a.m. or being a vegetarian or giving up belongings, but it was very ascetic in another way, you have to slave, you have to get this 3-year degree and then be an intern. And then when you're an intern, work for no money. And then after you're licensed, you can only charge $100. There never was any material prize at the end of the rainbow for work as a therapist that saves people's lives. Because yes, if you're a psychotherapist and you're here and you're live or on a replay, honor yourself, or a coach or any of that, you're saving people's lives, right? So your work, hey, Rachel, your work is saving people's lives. Yet in so many healing lineages, whether, my own journey as a psychotherapist or before that as a yoga teacher, the teaching was poverty is holy. Giving your shit away is holy. I literally got told when I used to teach yoga that, did I need money because yoga teachers are spiritual? And excuse me, spiritual does not mean that you eat 2 beans a day and sleep on the beach. That's not spiritual. That's fucking avoidance. So there's this lineage. I'm going to go back and ground because I'm really passionate. And your comments are completely welcome too. So pop them in. A few of you have been chatting here. So in these healing lineages, in my journey as a yoga teacher and a psychotherapist, for so many of you, for my friend where I started this, who, was more in the massage world, there's this teaching of suffering or being broke as a healer is holy. And there's such a direct correspondence with that in terms of patriarchy and Judeo-Christian roots. The Holy Virgin, the ascetic yogi renunciate. And, the more spiritual people don't need anything. And I am saying that has got to end. The other side of this split, of course, is, like my friend, like this original conversation, is that the business person is the sleazy salesperson or the sacred prostitute. Money is dirty. That's not what I think, but that's the subtext, the collective subtext, not with the whole world, not at all. But within communities of healers. Within communities of healers, money is dirty is a subtext. Within communities of healers, I don't need money. Within communities of healers, don't look at this shit. That's a subtext within these communities of healers, whether it's psychotherapy or yoga teachers or anything else. And I was going to say I hate to say it, but I don't hate to say it. The truth is all of that goes back to patriarchy. And all of that goes back to fucked up religious shit. And all of that goes back to the disavowal of sexuality, and sexuality is a form of power. And yes, there's personal trauma too, but the personal trauma we see is the trickle-down effect of those roots. And then, of course, a lot of, and I'm putting myself in this too, right? I'm not immune. I have this drama too. So we are in this together. So then there's this trickle-down effect of saying, oh, but I'm a healer, but I'm a therapist, but I'm a yoga teacher, but I'm a coach. I can just heal people, and I don't need to look at my secret desire to have $250,000 a year. That's naughty. That's worse than the kinkiest sex I want to have, right? That's dirtier, quote unquote. It's not dirty. That's quote unquote dirtier than my secret, like getting fucked in a miniskirt fantasy or whatever it is. And what's going on here is that people, many of us, I'm just going to make it a we, who are coaches, who are therapists, who are high-level healers with lots of training, have this wound, and I'm not going to call it a money wound, because the truth is it's like a power and sexuality wound that we are not seeing and addressing here, that goes back to the roots in patriarchy, in the Garden of Eden, in original sin. Power and divinity, can you put a price on that? So I'm not seeing this whole comment, but I think Andy, I think that's your name. I'm on my phone here. Andy's saying your power and divinity, can you put a price on that? I'm not very religious, very spiritual. Everything you believe is only an idea, concept, or thought. You choose if you believe it or not. So on the top level, you choose if you believe it or not, Andy, but we also have a subconscious and our own personal histories, which can run counter to what we choose to believe consciously. So there's actually two things. There's what we choose to believe, and then there's subconscious programming, and the two can kind of hit into each other. You choose to feel bad or feel amazing. 'Tis a simple choice, no matter what the topic. I choose to feel amazing. Well, first of all, I'm glad that you choose to feel amazing, Andy. I'm happy to hear that. But for people with trauma histories, which is actually most of the world, there's the top level choice to feel amazing, and then there's all this stuff in the subconscious, which is like 5 times stronger than your conscious mind, which can hit up against that choice. So if you don't have a lot of trauma or a lot of burdens, yeah, you can just choose to feel amazing, and that's totally true. But if you have like personal trauma, or even if you carry a lot of this collective trauma, then what's going to happen is you can say, I choose to feel amazing, but like that really traumatic thing that happened to you when you were 3 years old, or maybe it's not even super traumatic, maybe it's just like your parents fought a lot and told you were bad, that's going to run into your choice to feel amazing and challenge it. And you're probably not going to break through it on your own. So to respond to you, Andy, I'm glad that you can choose to feel amazing, and I support you in that. And if somebody doesn't have a heavy load of trauma or a heavy load of past stuff, then yes, you can choose to feel amazing, and yes, it can frankly work. But if you do have a heavy load of trauma, which quite honestly is most of us, I mean, look at what's going on in the world right now, you're not going to be able to permanently break through your subconscious on your own. And that's what I'll say about that. Yeah, okay. So Andy's saying, I have done the inner work. The old me had to die. It was horrible. So that explains it. So thank you for clarifying that, Andy, because yeah, you have to do the inner work. If you're going to say, I choose to feel amazing, either you're not carrying a lot of stuff or you've done the inner work. So thank you for clarifying. And you might even want to pop in a comment on what your inner work was, so people who are on the replay or live realize how much work sometimes has to go on behind the scenes to feel amazing. And by the way, when you say I've done the inner work, you're saying it's not just a simple choice, which is what I'm getting to for most of us. So to go back to where we are, and thank you for saying that, Andy. Thank you for all of that, is that the split between the holy broke healer and the sacred prostitute has to end. What we want here is not to just be like, in a day job where you're being a teacher when you really want to have a coaching practice or something, which is something that like a lot of my clients are going through. It's something that I've been in, saying, well, I have to like keep my job as a teacher, so one day I can have my coaching practice because I'm not going to get paid if I follow my dreams and become a coach, or whatever your dream is. Maybe your dream is to be an artist. I've had clients whose dream was to be an artist or to lead women's sex retreats or whatever. So the split between these has to end, because we don't want you like in your day job as a teacher for like 40 years while you figure that your dreams as an artist are over there because, if you're having pleasure, you're going to be broke. That has to end. And the sacred prostitute has to be integrated. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but if you want these changes, it needs to be. And I have some notes here on what to do to end this split, but I also have a personal story, and I'm wondering if you guys have a preference of direction. Do you want to go into what I have written down about ending the split? Okay, I'm not seeing anything, so I'm gonna jump into the personal story. I will give you the tips at the end. So if you're on the replay and you just want, like what do I do about this? Go forwards about 7 minutes from here. So I've been an entrepreneur essentially for decades. First, I was a yoga teacher. I certainly lived on my earnings as a yoga teacher, but I was certainly working my ass off and miserable. And that was like 2001 to 2009. Full-time yoga teacher, lived on it, but was hustling my butt off and exhausted and overworked and stressed out and grinding my teeth for making that shit work. Then I took a couple years off and went to grad school. After grad school, I did not become a therapist. I went directly into coaching. And to be completely transparent, because, if I'm going to coach you guys, if you're going to become my clients, I operate from honesty and transparency. My own business has been a roller coaster ride. I've made lots of money and I've made no money. I've made lots of money and I've made no money. I've made lots of money and I've made no money. But I've been tracking, what's going on at the times where I do make lots of money. And, in 2015, I was coaching and I was doing this work helping women who were therapists and educators transition into businesses as coaches, or even like leading ceremony and ritual, or even, going back and becoming an artist. Basically, I was helping women who were in good girl healer jobs full time transition to the work in the world that they truly desired. I was doing well at that time, emotionally, financially. My clients were doing well, and emotionally and financially in the work. And a huge part of the work that I was doing that differentiated it was I was weaving in work with sexuality and helping my clients embrace their sexual selves and deep trauma healing. So it wasn't like I'm going to business coach you. It was like, we're going to work on your ancestral trauma. We're going to clear out your trauma. We're going to turn on your sexuality, and we're going to get clear on your actual dreams and visions. And then I'm going to give you guidance towards those dreams and visions. You guys get it. That's what I was doing. But why my life was flowing and why my clients' lives were flowing were multifold. And I was in my sacred whore, basically. I was in my sacred whore, okay? Backstory. I had spent 10 years working on my own trauma. So if, you've never healed your own shit, this is not going to necessarily work. So I had spent a decade, getting a master's in psychology, going to massage school, taking 15 yoga teacher trainings, getting the trainings, working through my own childhood trauma. Huge backstory to get to this point. But when my business was flowing and my clients were flowing, what was going on for me was I was focusing on my relationship to my own sexuality. And I was worshiping my own sacred whore. And I could say how, but it wouldn't matter. Hey, Angelica, hi, love. I was, doing sex magic and sacred sexuality work and work with ritual and ceremony and my own sexuality. And that was a part of it. But beyond that, I was speaking the truth and being really honest. Not so much, I went through this terrible trauma, because that shit's real. But in terms of going to that integration, that matters a little bit less sometimes. And, saying, okay, this is the result I can get you. You want to work with me? This is how I can help you. So I was embracing my own sexuality as literally a sacrament, combining it with spiritual work, and being very honest in the sense of direct and bold of where I could take others. And I was just living in those two spaces of really deep sexual union with myself the sacred whore, really the sacred whore. Like, and when I speak to that, I'm talking about owning desire and saying, okay, I want 2 new clients at 5K each, or I want a Prius, or whatever it was that, if you're like hyper religious or whatever, culturally would get shamed. Good girls don't want shiny new cars. Good girls don't want $20,000. Good girls don't want to get fucked in a miniskirt. Whatever it is. I was owning all of those desires that I had. Hey, Patrice. So good to see you too, Angelica. Happy to see you. And Patrice, I'm happy to see you. Angelica, I was just waiting till I felt really inspired. And last night, yeah, Patrice, last night I just got this like major inspiration. Patrice, you're loving the title topic. Yeah, this has to be addressed because I am so fucking fed up. Patrice, this comes from a real story that happened a few days ago, but it comes from other stories too. So watch it from the beginning because I know you're jumping on later. So anyway, 2015, I was doing well. I was thriving. My business was doing well. My clients were doing well. I just told you guys what that business was at that time. I was loving my sexuality. I was honoring my desires. I wanted a Prius. I did sex magic and had a Prius like 3 days later, right? I wanted 4 new clients at 5Ks each. I was honest about that desire. I did sex magic. Now, it wasn't just all woo-woo. I had a business coach. I had a good business coach. Why am I fed up? I'll get there. Yeah, that's a good. Andy says, why are you fed up? Andy, I'm fed up at collective poverty consciousness, even though I've also struggled. I'm fed up at how people go into fear and contraction. And I'll say more about why I'm fed up. That's a great question, Andy. So, I love you too, Patrice. I adore Patrice. I don't know her well, but she's a superstar who also does work with the body. And I love that Patrice and I are somatic embodiment sisters. And we'll have to connect more, love. So what I was doing when I was like flying really high in 2015 was I had a great business coach. So I had the strategy, right? I was honoring my sexuality and my desires. I mean, it was not just like, okay, I'm going to have an orgasm. It was like, okay, but what do I want in the world? What do I want materially that society would say is wrong? That like, not society, but like that the church would say is wrong, or that the good girl healer, like yogi aesthetic world would say was wrong. Oh, I want a Prius. I want 4 new clients. And I was linking together my desires for cars, for clients, for success, for whatever it was, with business strategy, with sacred sexuality with myself, with being bold about my desires, with being really outspoken about what my work was and how I helped my clients. I was linking together all of those pieces. And for months, I was like flying high. So what happened along this time frame was that I wanted to deal with some of my trauma, right? Look, we all need to work through stuff. So I rehired an old mentor. And to back up just a moment, what had happened was I was honoring my sacred whore. That's what I was doing. The whole title of this, that's what I was doing. And using practical, like real world strategy too, of course, because you can't just like be like, I'm going to be like wild in the woods and like not do anything because nothing's going to happen. You have to do something in the world. So what happened was I wanted to work through some of my own childhood stuff. So I rehired an old mentor. And I have to say, she was so immersed in the broke, holy healer. She was so immersed in the flip side of this coin. She was like, oh, well, I can't charge more than $100 an hour because nobody can afford me because I'll be doing something wrong, or, oh, like, oh, you had an orgasm, that's bad, you like shaming my sexuality. Oh, her rates were low, and she was like, oh, I have to keep my rates hourly because nobody can afford me if I raise them. I'm like, that's not true. So many people can afford you, and you can do more good because you can raise your rates as high as you want, and then give free services to people in need. It's not like a split. Raise your rates to $20,000, and then after you're rich, go help poor people for free. Do whatever you want. There's a way. So she was like, so in the broke color healer, like, just suggesting that all the sexuality stuff I was doing was bad. Suggesting that like, oh, she couldn't raise her rates too because then nobody could afford it. One day I said something like, oh, I need to get laid. And she was like, oh, well, I've worked with prostitutes as my clients and this sounds like that. I was like, what? My desire for sex is like being a prostitute? Like, and I'm not going to name who this person was because I'm not here to shame her. What I am saying is that is the archetype of the broke holy healer. And that's the same energy that my friend was talking about, my friend from the beginning of this live stream was talking about, and that's the same thing that's keeping you as a coach, as a therapist, as a healer, feeling suffocated and small and broke. And yeah, it's about how much money you earn, absolutely, but it's not just about the money, it's about how expressed you are. Because sometimes it's going to change the money, and sometimes you're just going to have this more like freedom of expression or a better sex life, or you're going to say what you really want to in your marketing, or you're going to say what you really want to your husband. So mending the split could be about money in the bank and business, but it could also be about, are you like dressing the way you want to dress? Are you saying what the fuck you really want to say? You know, how's your sex life? It can play out in so many other ways. And what happened when I fell out of that integrated space inside of myself and worked with this healer who was very much in the broke holy healer space herself, was my business crashed and burned. My business crashed and burned in 2015, 2016 after working with this person. Because just living in, and I'm like not blaming her or saying she destroyed that. I'm saying that working with somebody like that as a client, when I was her client, like re-perpetuated earlier trauma. I'm not saying it was her fault. I'm saying most of us, not all of us, most or all of us have this cultural trauma of the split, of like asceticism is good and desire and sensuality and, you know, being wealthy as, I'm not so much a coach because coaches are a little different. Wealthy as like a psychotherapist or an embodiment teacher or a yoga teacher is naughty and bad, right? We all have this split, and it comes from the patriarchal trauma, and it also comes from our families. It comes from so many places. Working with this mentor in 2015 crashed my business. Was it her fault? No. Did it drag up earlier trauma in me? Yes. Right? Okay? So that's some of how this plays out. And honestly, she was doing me a disservice by not putting my power and desires first, but she was doing herself a disservice too, because this person is a pretty well-known practitioner. I'm not even going to say what she does. I'll call her a practitioner. And she was selling herself short as a woman who's a very powerful healer herself. She was actually, you know, cutting off her own feet or cutting herself off at the knees because she didn't want to look at her own feelings about money and sex. Okay, so how do we end this split? You know, I started quite a while ago talking about the broke holy healer is the virgin and the business person is the whore. How do we end the split, right? Like, what are we going to do about this? Well, I could do a sensuality live stream with somebody and do like a live practice where, no, we're not going to do anything sexual, but where you embody sensuality. But that would be a piece of it. Okay, so how do we end this split? The first thing is that you need to honor big emotions in your body. Okay, Andy's saying, have you been happy so far chasing phantoms, not knowing they were phantoms? I'm not clear what you mean, Andy. So you can clarify that if you choose to, because I don't really know I don't even know what the phantom is here. Everything I've been talking about so far has been very grounded and tied back to history and mythology and psychology. So I'm not clear. I don't see any phantoms here, so you can tell me what the phantom is. So the steps to ending the split. Big emotions in the body. You need to start to welcome and honor big emotions in your body. It's probably the thing that you avoid the most. And it's probably the thing that you avoid the most. Andy's asking, have you been happy? Andy, I'm going to ask you, why are you asking that question? Because I'm talking about something pretty specific here. I'm curious why you're asking that question and why happiness is your specific measurement. Like, I'm really curious why happiness. I will say I've been empowered, and I've been strong, and I've known the truth. And happiness is a great thing to have. Happiness is wonderful, but I don't see it personally as the end goal of life. If you were going to ask me what I saw the end goal of all of this is, I would say truth. I would say empowerment. I would say embodiment. And happiness is fucking awesome, and it comes and it goes. You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Are people happy about that? I doubt it. So I think that that's sort of a misguided question, because that's not the actual barometer that I'm speaking about. But if that's your barometer, that's great. So how do we heal this split? Big emotions in your body. You need to welcome them, and it's probably the ones that you're avoiding. It's probably the emotions that you're avoiding, right? Like, it could be joy. You could be avoiding joy or bliss or sexual ecstasy. It could be shame. It could be anger or rage or hate, right? The reason to honor big emotions in your body is because as you honor them, it takes you towards your desires, your authentic desires. And yes, sexual desires, but also desires about the business you truly want, desires about the money you want, and so on. So the first step to mending the split is to be honest about the big emotions in your body and to let them lead you towards your actual desires. And I mean the desire that you really want, not like, mom told me I should want this, so I want this, right? The true desire, the deeper desire, the authentic desire. Okay. The second step to ending the split is being honest about your own sexuality. And sure, you could talk about romance and love and your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, and all of that's good. It's more that there's a collective shame about sexuality. And collective shame, and I'm speaking probably more to women, but maybe to men here. There's been a collective shame about us feeling our own sexual energy within our own bodies. So getting honest with yourself about how you know your own sexuality as a primal vital current in your own body. Because sexuality goes back to power. It goes back to desire. And it does go back to personal and cultural topics around shame, which for like the healer ascetic people is very aligned and related to money shame. The third part of this mending the split is having actual conversations about money. Beginning with, you know, if this video is directed to you, which it will be for some of you and not for others, you know, if you are, you know, the broke holy healer, the broke holy healer as virgin, you guys know what I'm saying, or the broke holy healer, if you've tended to veer in that direction, note, you can be very successful and still tend to veer in that direction, okay? You might be very successful already and still veer in that broke holy healer direction. So the third step in mending the split is to have actual conversations about money. Beginning with you and admitting that it does fucking matter. Hey, Madeline, beginning with money does fucking matter. It's a real thing. Money paid my rent this month, etc. And just owning and acknowledging the primacy that we live in a society where we need money, right? Where it's a requirement, not like this optional thing, unless you want to sleep on the beach, which maybe you do. Could be fun. So actual conversations about money with yourself, one, beginning with it does matter, and facing all the feelings that does bring up for you. Yeah, money does matter, and how do I feel when I acknowledge that money does matter, that it's this real thing? And it's not a dirty word, because, you know, a lot of you guys, I mean, do it right now. Look in the mirror and say the word money and see how you feel, right? For some of you, not for all of you. Certainly not for all of you. For some of you, it's going to feel like a dirty word. For me, sometimes it feels like a dirty word. And getting honest with yourself about money, acknowledging that it does matter, that it is a real thing. I'm going to add something because I didn't get into this here, that you should never be a slave for it, which I'm not going to go too deeply down because that's its own video, but that you should never, ever, ever, ever be a slave for it. And I understand hard times hit and like sometimes we're in a bind, but don't be a slave to it. And that's a whole, because that puts you more in the broke holy healer or the prostitute. That creates other problems. But acknowledge actual conversations about money, beginning with it does matter. It's not a dirty word. And then getting honest about what you want to create. How much money do you really want here? I'm not the coach to say I can take you from 0 to 2 million. I've never done that. I've never come anywhere close. So I'm not telling you about that. What I am saying is to talk to yourself about money and to get honest about what you want to earn. What do you want? What do you want to create? What the fuck would you want to create financially if you weren't so busy being nice? I'm going to say that again. What the fuck would you want to create financially if you weren't so busy being nice and trying to make other people happy? And to just be honest with yourself about that desire, that want, that need, to name it to yourself and to be honest and to honor it as valid. You know, and how we get you there is another question. Note, I'm not a business strategist. I do all the inner work. So we can talk about how you do the inner work, because this is a lot of this is about the inner work, and the tips I'm giving you guys are about the inner work. Okay. So to go back to the beginning, because I've been on for a long time and a lot of you have jumped on and off, we were talking about the broke holy healer is the virgin, the business person is the whore. And what we went through is why this topic came up for me with a friend the other night, who you are, who this is for, where this comes from in history, a bit of my own story, and, you know, what to do about this, right? So for your fullest power, if you are, you know, a teacher by day and moonlighting as a coach, or you're a full-time psychotherapist, but you want to be an artist. And I'm giving these examples because this is who my clients have been. This is who I work with. You know, if you're busy being really, really nice in your psychotherapy practice, but you want to be a sexuality coach or whatever it is, just examples of who I've worked with and who resonates with me, who I resonate with. If you want to be in your fullest power in any of these situations, you need to let yourself be both the Holy Virgin and the sacred whore. Hey, Jillian. Jillian, I'm so happy to see you here. I'm sort of wrapping up, so you definitely want to watch this from the beginning. So to be in your fullest power, you need to be both the Holy Virgin and the sacred whore. The Holy Virgin, right? The Holy Virgin, do your healing work with others. Do it to your fucking best capacity. Pour your heart out with love. Love is a real thing. You know, love and light, yes, that shit is real. Give it your all. Be the Holy Virgin. Do the best you can by your people and by your clients and by people you love. Absolutely. And be the sacred whore. Welcome your sexuality. Welcome your sensuality. Welcome every fucking emotion you feel. Welcome your business person. Be a healer and a badass business person. Be honest that money is a real topic, and be honest about how much money you truly want. Whether you get there or not, that's a different story, but be honest about the desire. And then hold both of those energies of the Holy Virgin and the sacred whore together in your body, in your consciousness, in your energy at the same time. And it's going to be uncomfortable, you guys. This is not pretty or easy. And then hold those energies together and take actions on the world based on them both, because there is no contradiction, and see what happens. Okay. So that's what I have to say for this. Of course, I want to invite some of you, if you feel called to work with me after all of this. Years ago, I was working with women who were coaches, healers, teachers, educators, really specifically on transforming their own ancestral trauma, including the deepest, darkest sexual abuse, into spiritual and material wealth. And that's exactly what I'm pulling back out right now. Okay, who it's for. This is for you if you are, you know, like a full-time teacher or therapist or something that's like really dedicated to helping others, but you want to blossom into something else career-wise, whether that's work in sacred sexuality, work as an artist, work as a coach. You've been in this good girl box of overgiving, and you feel like you have this other vision to build, but it's like dirtier, naughtier, more wild. It's still, this other vision you have is still about helping people probably. It's just a lot more wild and creative and self-expressed. But you know that just going to a business coach is not going to cut it, because you need to work a lot on trauma, your work with your own your relationship with your own sexuality, right? And your honest to God relationship with money. Now, I'm not going to make some big money promise to make 40K in 2 days. That's not me. But what we are going to get into is your relationship and your authentic feelings about it, because just being honest with yourself can move fucking mountains. Okay, what we do in this work. What we do is we do a lot of ancestral trauma clearing. My work is different than therapy. It's very, 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 very somatic and embodied. But we also work with the psychological constructs. I do have a master's in psychology, which like 99% of the coaching industry does not have. And we do a lot of, we don't just do trauma work, but about a third of the work is deep trauma work, where we work with your body, your emotions, emotion, primal feeling, everything you've been afraid to address, paired with psychological work, paired with relational work, paired with shamanic work and soul retrieval. So that's like a huge core of the work is what we do in there. We also turn on your sacred sexuality and sexual magnetism. And we do that more at the, well, if you're in a deep trauma space, we don't do that at the beginning. Where that happens varies. But we do that close to the beginning, because I want you to get traction fast. I want you to sign up to work with me. And if something in your life change, whether that's like clarity on your career vision or a healed relationship or 5K in the bank, I want you to have something change within the first 3 to 4 weeks. So the trauma work's great, but it gets you the long-term result. We do a lot of sacred sexuality work. I'm not going to tell you to like fuck 10 strangers. That's not what I mean. I mean sensual embodiment in sacred sexuality with yourself for magnetizing your desires to you. So there's the trauma work piece that I spoke to. There's the sacred sexuality piece that I just spoke to very briefly. That's a big piece of the work. And we do that because, well, one, you need to heal the virgin whore split. It's primal, it's vital, it's required. You need it. But two, there's too many coaches and programs where they put you through a whole thing and then it's 6 months later and nothing's changed. And I need you, this is funny for me to say, I was going to say I need you to get results quickly, but that's not quite it. I want you to get some sort of I don't want to say quantum leap. I want something in your life to dramatically change for the first 3 to 4 weeks so you have traction. And doing the sexuality work with yourself at the beginning is a huge ingredient in making that happen. And then we go back in and do the trauma work. The trauma healing is what gets you the long-term result, okay? The third part of what we do is visionary business and career work, meaning I'm a psychic intuitive channel. We talk about what you want to create as you get in touch with your desires. We talk about what you create. I don't say you have to do this or you have to do that. I drop into this very intuitive, I could say fifth dimensional, but that's really not my language. It's very deep space with you. We talk about what you want, what you really want, what you honestly desire. And then I will lay out an array of possible business, career, visionary outcomes for you. And then you choose the one that feels the best. So I can open up a psychic space with you and say, okay, what do you want? You have to be honest about what you want. Then we'll do a couple of readings or a couple of psychic channeling sessions. And I'll say, I see these like 4 potentials. And I see this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And here's what feels like the highest outcome to me, but which one feels like the highest outcome to you? And we do a whole bunch of work on the visionary, psychic, business, life path, career, really psychic channeling intensives. And then, of course, you're responsible for taking action on that. So that's the work. Very short form, who it's for, what we do, results, right? What results can you expect from this? Every single client I have ever had has cleared massive childhood trauma. And this is across the board over like 7 or 8 years. Like sexual abuse, PTSD, nightmares, within the first 8 to 12 sessions. That does not mean that you'll never have to deal with your trauma again. That does mean that one majorly traumatic event should be cleared, should be healed, should be resolved within the first 8 to 12 sessions. Other results that clients have had is being estranged from her dad for 20 years and then getting dad back in her life in 11 weeks. Getting clarity on a new career path and having the courage to move forwards is a big one. That's been an across the board one. So another across the board one besides the trauma is vast majority of my clients have had clarity on a new career path and the courage to move forwards, meaning they totally changed gears, they totally changed paths, and they had some degree of financial traction on their new path. Like whether that was like 4 clients of their own or $8,000 in 8 weeks, or like going from something they hated to their dream job, that sort of lateral leap from their heart. And they've had some traction on their desired path. Hey, Joseph. So that's what we do. That's a quick snapshot of the results. If you want to do this with me, or you might not know if you want to, if you're interested, inbox me, send me a private message. I'm doing both a VIP day format for that, which is like quick, not easy, it's deep work, but it's like a 4-hour virtual intensive. So we have the 4-hour virtual intensive, and I'm also going to pull out 6 months, which I have not done. Thanks, love. Which I have not done in ages. But what I found is when I used to work with clients for 6 months, and I dropped that down to 4 recently, and most of my recent clients have been 4 months, and then some of them renew and some of them don't. I want to bring out my old 6-month offer. One, because we are in a time of massive change, and we all need support, and how great would it feel to be supported and held for half a year right now? Like, I need that. We all need that. I mean, most of us need that, right? How great would it feel to have more time to work through your personal transition and the global transition, right? That would feel awesome. But 2, what I found was in the longer container, people were getting like a lot more like exponential traction in, starting their dream business or booking out their dance ceremony practice or transitioning to a career in the arts and signing clients and loving it. So in the longer container, when I used to do 6 months, people were getting like, it was like an exponential amount of traction in their real world vision versus the 4-month container. So that's what I have for you. If you're interested, hey, Mary Frances, I'm happy you're here, love. I'm wrapping up, so go back to the beginning. If this speaks to you, if this live stream has spoken to you, if these offers have spoken to you, send me a message on Messenger. I am here. I am interested in getting to know you. I am curious to see how I can help to take you to where you really, really want to go in all of this. And more than anything, to be in your fullest power, you get to be both the Holy Virgin and the Sacred Whore. So much love.